Well, I hope everybody's got the right link, unless I'm missing something. With 2 minutes to spare, I'm only seeing 2 council members still.
They should have it, Mayor. They got the original one that was sent, and then Jody sent. There was another one that was sent with both links, and then she resent it with both links. So they should have it.
Yeah.
Catherine and I are the only ones you need.
That's true, Bob. Yeah. It won't be a legal meeting with a quorum, but you're all we need.
So yeah, we have 2. I'm thinking maybe hopefully they'll be on right at 6, but I see 19 on.
That's here.
Yeah, so we got
Got 3.
Yep.
That's Councilmember Lasay to you. Kidding.
To who, Councilor say?
I don't know. I didn't know who said it.
All right.
Trying to figure out how to turn the volume up.
We have a quorum.
Yep.
And Councilor Holloway. Very good.
There you go.
And I now have 6 o'clock. So with that, I now call the Snoqualmie City Council Roundtable to order. And I'll turn it over to, well, actually, Jody, why don't you do roll call for the roundtable?
Certainly. Councilmember James?
Here.
Councilmember Ross?
Here.
Councilmember Holloway?
He's muted.
If you ask for me, I'm here.
Councilmember Holloway?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Councilmember Mayhew?
Here.
Councilmember Lasay?
Here.
Councilmember Holloway, can you? He's still muted.
Councilmember Sundwall?
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd? Councilmember Shepherd?
I don't see her, Jody.
And Mayor Larson?
I am here. I think you missed a couple of councilors or Councilor Mayhew.
I did hear them, sir.
That was just
okay.
you, Mayor.
Sorry about that. And did Councilor Holloway unmute at some point?
Yes.
Yes.
We at least
Yeah, he did, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Jody. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Drew Boutet to, again, continue our conversations around the non-utilities capital improvement plan.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. First, I would like to thank you for your guidance, input, and feedback at the last budget roundtable. The goal of this meeting for the administration is really to focus on this table and to really seek some conclusive guidance. We're basically at a checkpoint looking to cross over into some new territory, but first we would appreciate your permission to pass this non-utility CIP stage. The primary question today is, within the financial parameters of this table, is council okay with administration working with the 2021 and 2022 numbers when building non-utility capital investments into the biennial budget? Before answering that question, I'd like to review the table briefly and address the one change we made since the last budget roundtable. As mentioned at the last budget roundtable, the table is primarily broken up into 2 main separate blocks: estimated sources and estimated uses. Furthermore, these sources and uses are projected across 4 columns: 2021, 2022, 2023 through 2026, and a total for the 6-year period. The 2021 and 2022 columns represent what the city proposes to incorporate into the biennial budget. Estimated sources remains unchanged since the last budget roundtable. However, administration did update estimated uses to include 1 additional project. At the last budget roundtable, a question was asked about the enterprise resource planning system replacement, otherwise known as Springbrook, and its funding. It has largely been past practice to treat IT much like the fleet program and the replacement of vehicles. When it is time to replace IT-related hardware or software system, the city has typically built up a cash balance set aside over the life cycle of the asset to fund its eventual replacement. However, in the case of replacing the ERP system, administration believes that a contribution to IT out of the revenues identified above in this table in the amount of $700,000 over a 2-year period is prudent to ensure that the project can move forward with sufficient funding. This is additional funding which would add to the cash balance set aside over the life cycle of Springbrook already built up over time. Now, the $700,000 allocated to the ERP replacement project is in essence not an increase in expenditures, but the repurposing of some spending planned under the future capital project needs section highlighted in red. In order to accommodate the contribution to the ERP replacement project, the city has reduced the future capital project needs section by $700,000. As you can see here, highlighted in red, it is no longer the $14.8 million that was shown at the last budget roundtable, but is now 14.1. As a result of this repurposing, total estimated uses over the 6-year period of the non-utility CIP has not changed, and it remains at $33.22 million as it did during the last budget roundtable. Now, just before concluding, just to reiterate, the administration is seeking some guidance on whether we can proceed forth with the 2021 and 2022 columns of this table. Would appreciate any feedback you can give. Thank you for your time, and now I think we're ready for some questions.
All right, so council will open it for any questions or discussion at this point. Councilmember Holloway.
So maybe it's just you came a different direction than what I'm used to. So the 350,000 per year, 700,000 for IT. Was the I guess the enterprise fund of IT also reduced by 700,000, thereby reducing the fees in individual departments?
No, those were not. Basically,
What I didn't hear was what we had previously planned was insufficient for what we wanted to do and required an additional $700,000.
that would be a correct statement.
If that's a correct statement, why do I have $700,000 in here?
So in order to get this project across the line over the next 2-year period, what we're saying is the non-utility CIP should contribute $700,000 towards a project for which we haven't set aside enough money over time to get that project across the finish line. So in essence, we're topping up with $700,000 in addition to the amount that we've already put towards this project in the IT fund.
I'm still concerned you're coughing up when we need to choke down, given COVID and everything else, but okay.
Hi, this is Robert. Just wanted to weigh in a little bit on this. I'm sorry, I'll defer to Mayor Pro Tem. He's got his hand up.
Sorry, you guys are gonna have to use the raise hand feature because again, on the presentation I only see 6. So Mayor Pro Tem, I missed you, but go ahead.
Oh, I was, well, I think Mr. Hammoud's response probably makes, so let me make sure I understand what's going on here. I'm pretty sure I understand it, but what, so am I correct? I just want to ask a couple quick questions. Am I correct that our revolving funds, or if I talk like an accountant, or sinking funds, what we do with those, whether it's the equipment repair and replacement fund, whether it's the IT fund, with each of those funds, we take things that we buy, say a vehicle or an IT system, an ERP system, and then what we do is over the life of that item, we charge the department that uses it. In the case of an ERP system, all of the departments that use it, we charge them enough so that at the end of the expected life of that item, we will have the amount that we estimate we will need to spend to replace it at that point. Is that a correct understanding of how we operate those revolving funds?
That's a correct statement.
Okay, so the ways we could get caught short would be, it seems to me, either we get a surprise on the life, it's perhaps shorter than we thought, so we come up without enough money, or it costs more than we thought, so we hadn't charged enough to put away, or it could go the other direction as well. And so where I think that a couple of years ago in our ER&R fund, we decided we could lower the rates we were charging out because we thought we were overshooting a bit. And so this is just something you guys do each budget cycle, is you try and chew those up to your latest best estimates as to life and to amounts. Is that a fair statement? Is that a correct statement?
This is Robert. This is a correct statement. And also to Councilmember Holloway's point, we did go to RFP for this with the approval of council. And again, we're not saying we're going to implement now. We're not even planning to come now, meaning immediately to council. But based on the quotes we got back, yes, it was higher than what was originally set aside starting in 2006 for this project rebuild. So when we finally got to it, and again, it's 4 years later than the life that was expected of Springbrook, which was 2016. It was supposed to be 10 years. We're now in 2020. Those costs have gone up. So yes, to get a full rebuild, we want to account for all the costs and what the realistic estimates of this project are, hence the increase. I hope that makes sense.
So just following on the questions I was asking. So then where we've landed, it appears to me, is that here we are now looking at next year's budget. We're actually looking at replacing this system next year. Actually, I think you guys are already in the process, as Mr. Hammoud just pointed out. I think we're already, I think we've already put it out to bid. And so we're in the process, but a substantial amount of that is going to happen, I think, next year and the following year. So we're about to implement this. And what we're discovering is the cost is greater than what we had put aside. So we, it appears, just didn't charge enough out during the life of our current system to actually cover the replacement costs. Is that a fair understanding of why we now need to go to the capital budget and say, wait, we need some more money? There wasn't enough. We didn't set aside enough in the annual charges into the revolving fund. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
Okay, so then maybe what you could do to help council members understand, I think, I don't want to speak for Councilmember Holloway, but I think what he was driving at is help us understand, are you guys adding features? Is that why the cost is going up? Is it that we just thought it would be cheaper and it just isn't? Help us understand why that cost is different. And then there's sort of a second part of I thought I heard, which is, given that we're in the middle of COVID, this pandemic and all the economic impacts, is there any possibility of deferring this for a while and building that up over time? Or now I understand that I think I know the answers to these questions, but I think you need to explain it to us. Or do we really need to move forward given the situation we're in? Could you just kind of help us understand why we need to do that 700,000 now, and why you're coming now with that and you didn't previously see that? Just help us understand this.
So again, yeah, to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, when this was originally budgeted, and I'll just say this from my history in government, say 10 years ago, there were 6, 7 vendors that would bid on a project like this. Those companies have been acquired by literally 1 or 2 companies left on the market. We were actually rejected by several companies that thought we were too small. But there's a couple of companies where we're too big. And so that 3 little bears, what's just right, there's one company that fits the need, that offered it. Many of our neighbors use it. And unfortunately, that cost is higher than it would have been a few years ago. So that's what's happened. It's not, we didn't ask for, this is just a system that would replace Springbrook. Some of the capabilities we've discussed with FNA. The only difference is again, a robust purchasing module, a budgeting module, and a financial reporting module, and an asset management. So one difference is from when we originally went out to bid is we did ask for a replacement or an integrated asset management system. So that's something that's part of this. But otherwise, yes, it is the same standard system. This is what we need as a full service city. This is what we need the accounting world and the budgeting world to function as a city. This would be the cost to replace ERP Springbrook. This would be the cost in $2020 currently. So again, going forward, what we wanted to do and what we recommended is, yes, even if we put it off, say we decided because of the economic reasons and the budgeting reasons this year to put it off for a couple of years, this is still a critical need for the city. We want to make sure it's on the list and on the project list is a critical need, so it doesn't slip by and we don't not have the funding in the future. Hope that makes sense.
What's the total? So this 700 gets added to how much that's already in the revolving fund for a total of what?
Okay, so originally we had $1 million for this project. If you recall, there was an appropriation of about 550,000. We spent a little bit of that on just very minimal costs. I think probably under 10,000 still. So we still have a bulk of that appropriation that was appropriated in the 1920 budget. So you're talking $1 million plus that 700,000.
So we have $1 million. It's going to cost us 1.7 is what we now believe. Is that accurate?
But it's an all-in cost. So before, when we were just looking at the cost of the system, the all-in cost that we're looking at with this is we wanted to make sure we're incorporating any project-related expense. So that includes project management position, because before, if you remember, we had a project manager hired in the IT department. That was just under the regular allocation. This would cover that position. This would also cover extra assistance from a consultant and also extra needs in the finance department to make this happen. So we looked at what the all-in cost would be for this project. So that includes the staffing as well. So that's the other difference. We wanted to make sure we incorporate everything into that CIP item. Hope that makes sense.
Robert, I think the other concern Councilmember Hall was raising was, even given this is critical systems, the timing is pretty rough with the financial
Correct.
challenges at the end of 2019, and then added to that by the COVID crisis. It seems we're going the wrong direction. Can you speak to the revenues that are paying for this? Is there some recommendation that part of what's paying for this is some of the one-time capital or ending fund balances or reserves that were set aside versus ongoing operational budget? So it's not putting, so we said, hey, we have to try and trim the operational budget by $500,000 this year to have that hybrid approach to, economic recovery. And
so one thing we're looking at, we are looking internally on deferring this project, but still doing it within the upcoming biennium instead of right now. But as part of that, what we're looking at to help fund it is we're looking at our charge out rates to other departments. For example, there's a large portion of this system because it's going to have the asset management, utility billing, a large portion of the invoicing that should be charged out to utilities. So that's one thing where we're looking at increasing that charge out to utilities. So that will drop some of that quote unquote general government or general fund cost to that. There's also possible options for financing we can look at. So there's other mechanisms that we are looking at to fund that.
Okay, understood. Yeah, so of the 1.7 million or this $700,000, only a portion of that, maybe half, if less or maybe more, is being charged to the ongoing general fund operational budget. The rest to the enterprise fund, since they benefit from these systems as well, correct?
That is the intention, yes.
Can you address my original question though, which is what hey, council, we cut $500,000 out of this year's budget, and then we're gonna have to cut a similar amount going into 2021. I'm sorry, 21-22, to at least address the short-term crisis, well, we don't know if it's a short-term or long-term fiscal crisis. But now we've come back and added $700,000, and now we haven't trimmed it all. We're now set at $200,000 plus from where we. Well, I'm sorry, not for 20. I'm kind of mixing up 2020. I'm asking if some of this isn't being recommended to be paid for out of one-time capital or one-time sort of infrequent ERP improvement or from some ending fund balances, or is this all coming out of operational reserves and ongoing revenues?
No, so again, 1 million is coming out of the reserve that we had built up for this replacement. The other 700,000, like you said, about 50% of it would come from utilities. The other 50% could be either an increase in the charge outs to the departments going forward, financing for that piece, because we're looking at financing. The company we're working with offers financing, so that's a possibility as well. Or like you said, one-time funds, if we have one-time funds that would be available. So we're still evaluating it. At this point, we're not looking to pull the trigger on this project in 20, so we are looking at more of that 21, 22. But back to the point of CIP or a long-term investment, this is a 10-year investment for the city. So rather than just a one-time operational need, it's a 10-year investment for the city. We know we're working on a product that is not supported as well as it has been. It's been gone under mergers and acquisitions. There's not a lot of functionality. And so that's why we decided originally to proceed with this RFP. It was the intention to replace Springbrook after 10 years. That would have been 2016. So we're 4 years beyond that. So even stretching it a couple of years, there's a risk there, obviously, of the system integrity in those couple of years. But long-term, to satisfy the current needs of the city, to satisfy what we need to pay the bills, what we need to keep the accounting and keep the general ledger, we are going to need to invest in a new system. If not this year, then it's going to have to be next year, the year after. But in the short term, the city is going to have to make that investment to for the next 10 years, and hopefully the system will last 20 years because we're looking at software as service, so something that does get updated every year. So it is a long-term investment. So it's more generational rather than just a one-year investment.
All right, in the spirit of roundtable, Councilor Lissay, and then back to Councilor Mayhew.
Well, Mayor, if Councilor Mayhew has a question about this topic, about the ERP, I'll let him go ahead and have that first.
I think
Mine's more of a general question.
All right, thank you, Councilor Lissay. Councilor Mayhew.
Actually, I was going to try and help explain things, but that just got, I don't know how to untangle that. I'm just going to let it go. I don't have anything.
Okay, Councilor Lissay.
Yeah, thanks. I was tangled, so I was going to move on because maybe it'll clear itself up. I'm curious, Robert, that we've got the or Drew, either one. Drew, it's your presentation. We show total ending CIP cash balance down at the bottom of 14.2 at 221 and 12.4 at 2022. What are we forecasting for ending cash balance for 2020?
So if you scroll up to the top, James, if you don't mind, basically that total beginning CIP cash balance is the ending cash balance for 2020. And so I would say for 2020, the projected cash balance.
Drew and Councilor Lissay and if you.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that, Mayor.
We can't hear you. You're coming in like one word out of every 10. Can you maybe?
Okay.
Well, you're working now, I guess. So maybe looks like Councilor Lissay froze. So I'm not sure that he's hearing you either.
I can hear him just fine.
You were hearing both of them. I think it may be your end.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So basically, the beginning cash balance for 2021 is the ending cash balance for 2020. So the ending cash balance projected for 2020 is 15.96 million.
Okay, so just so I'm going to do some quick math, and maybe if you can scroll back down. So if we have, let's call that a round number of 16 million. At the end of 2022, right now, we're forecasting that we're going to draw down that cash balance by, what is that, 3.6 million?
Sure.
Okay, I just want to get I want to get a perspective of what we're looking at there.
Yeah.
And I know we'll deal with 2023 and 2026 as it's being considered, but I want to focus on this biennial budget.
Thank you.
Did the mayor disappear?
I turned off my video because people are starting to be choppy, and I suspect it's on my end again, I guess.
Do you want me, can you see hands, Mayor?
I can.
Nope. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Holloway.
I'll defer for the moment to Catherine. Councilmember Ross can go first.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Ross.
So this is getting back to the balances. From the 16 million to 14.2, it's a drawdown of 1.8 million. I'm just curious, what type of minimums are you trying to keep? Because the next year we'll have remaining 12.4 million. And so did we agree on, gosh, we want to have 10 million reserved? I mean, these seems pretty hefty amounts. I understand COVID, but we've also taken a lot of cuts, and now we're even talking about possibly deferring ERP, which is on the F&A committee. It's a really vital system that we need for internal controls. And so maybe we should look at allocating some of the cash balances, the ending cash balances, to some of these projects, and not keeping 14.2 million. Maybe we keep 14 million or 13.5 million or something like that.
Councilmember Holloway.
So I'm internally debating. So just future reference, guys, before you bring a solution, tell me the problem. And that's what got me triggered. But I'm of half a mind to say shift this all out a year unless you can figure out how to take $350,000 out of the rest of the budget for 2021. Because I'm not hearing, I believe there's a strong case for an ERP system. I'm not hearing a solid plan. So just my 2 cents, guys.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Yes, so I think my perspective on this is these are capital funds. We got to keep this real clear in our mind. This is not operating funds. In capital funds, there are no reserves. There's no concept of a reserve in a capital fund. There's no reason you would ever have one. You can talk about having perhaps something in case a project comes up that you didn't expect, but those are usually on the general funds, in the operating funds, which is indeed where our roughly $1 million emergency reserve is. So these are capital funds. The way that I think it's important for us to understand this is once we spend that, starting out at 16 million, once we spend it, it is gone. It will never come back. It is gone forever. It came because previous councils during the build out of Snoqualmie Ridge set aside all of the one-time all of the one-time revenues, substantial amounts of sales tax on construction being the biggest driver, and they set this aside and didn't use it for operations. But the ridge is built out. So all of that massive buildup isn't going to happen again. Now, yes, we get REIT every year, and that's in the budget. But the other thing that's happened, and this was kind of the discussion we had the last 2 council meetings on this, is that stuff that's in the green, those programs to maintain what we have are now at a mature level, at the level of a fully built out aging city. So the city got away with $500,000 a year for that green stuff, $1 million a year for the last few years. Now it's at $2.5 million a year. And if you look at the REIT and the other dedicated sources up in the sources section, you see that what comes in now pretty much goes, the bulk of it goes to just the maintenance of what we already have, the green stuff. So our ability to do any capital projects of any kind, anything new at all, anything that isn't just renewing what we have, that there's no source as we look forward for that money. So it's grants. It is the extent by which our sources can be greater than the stuff in green. And then that's all we're going to be able to afford. So I would encourage us to be very cautious about spending the 16 million, not because we need reserves, but because once we spend it, it's gone. I would encourage us, and I know that this, not everyone on the council is in favor of, for example, an expanded community center. And maybe that's not the right project. But I would encourage us to think of things like that. If we sort of bleed that money off, just understand when it's gone, and especially if we bleed it off for sort of, ongoing projects or things, we're going to hit the end of that money. And then what will we do? We won't even be able to maintain that level. So I would encourage us to really think about that 16 million and be very jealous of how we spend it. So I think that this plan that they've presented to us is fantastic. It lets us come to grips now with what's in green, come to grips with what the sources are, give them the green light. Yes, go ahead and bring us budgets, a biennial budget that incorporates all that stuff in the green. It brings the highest priority projects, which is the stuff in yellow and orange, right? That we've already applied for matching grants on. Yes, go forward with those projects. And then we want to spend about another 14 million, or they're going to propose to us about 14 million. Frankly, our CIP was much higher than 14 million, much higher than all the resources we have. So we're going to have to struggle to get our list down. Maybe it's to the particular 14 million they're presenting. There's still 8 million at the end. Maybe it's a bit more. Maybe it isn't. But I think that's a big thing where we're going to have to take each of these projects and apply this test. Is this how we want to use our buildup that we don't get back? Does it, and I think that's a bigger discussion. So I think that for tonight, I think what we want to do is say, okay, they really haven't asked for a lot. Are we comfortable with those yellows and those oranges? And are we comfortable signing off on the green? Yes, go bring us a biennial budget that's roughly like that, where we can see the details behind it, we understand what you're doing. Or do we want to say, nope, cut the 700,000 out, no IT system, as an example? Is there something we want to cut out? Otherwise, let's tell them, yes, go forward with this, bring us a budget. We'll dig into it then. And then we're going to have to deal with that 14 million. And what projects do we want to do? How do we want to use that big buildup? And we're going to need more time. And that's, the mayor proposed this, and I think it's a great idea. Let's focus our retreat in January or February. Let's focus our retreat on really coming to grips with that and making some big decisions.
Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember Shepherd, could you unmute, please?
Okay, so the thought that comes to my mind is, I think that the IT project needs to happen. And I think that there's plenty of ways of justifying doing it sooner than later. I think that you're going to find that you're going to have a lot more productivity if we get that in sooner than later. I think there's a lot of manual work that's being done right now. And I know that there's going to have to go through a learning curve, but and if you subject yourself to, not having something functioning at all, I don't even know what what is the plan B? So I think we really need to make that a priority.
Thank you. Councilor Mayhew.
I would say I completely agree with the points that Councilmember Shepherd just made. And I would add, if we can get that system in so that Councilmember Shepherd is satisfied with the reporting she's getting and therefore is able to raise less questions, that's another huge victory. So I really do think that we've got our accounting staff working. Now, of course, you guys all know I'm an accountant, so I'm sort of partial to these guys, but honestly, they're really operating with a severe system limitation. I believe a lot of that was just set up wrong from the get-go. But now they don't have anyone that can reprogram this thing. And of course, the systems today, you're just throwing good money after bad. It would cost a tremendous amount to even try, and the new system would do so much more. It was never even scoped correctly, in my opinion. So I think they need it. I think they need it now. I think it'll make a big difference to the operating budget and what they can accomplish with the resources that they have, as opposed to having to come back and ask for more resources in accounting. I think it'll make all the other departments a lot more effective by giving much faster, more effective reporting. I don't think this is, I don't, and no one's accusing them of ginning it up, but I don't think it's exaggerated. I think this is a tremendous need. I also encourage us to leave that in, and I think we just need to fund this. I've got sticker shock, but I think we need to do it.
Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember Shepherd, if you could unmute.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, so the other thought I had is that, you know, going through this COVID process, I don't know how this is impacting the ERP level of services. And so, you know, maybe we need to be cautious about, you certainly don't want to go into an ERP with a company that may not be here tomorrow. It'd be like putting your ERP system on a banana peel. So if there's any way that we can be sure that the company that we work with will be there for us 10 years later, that would be great. But that would be something to be cautious of.
All right, thank you. Council, we're at 6:34, but another 25 minutes left for the roundtable. Are there any other questions or areas on this? And I guess my question for staff is, we've had a number of internal discussions about now I'm blanking, I think it's the phase 3 of the downtown project on the kind of that 202 going all the way up to toward the bridge or past the Parkway area. That was like a $6 or $7 million project. We had an $800,000 grant that we were awarded from PSRC to do the design work on that. And we've really kind of wrestled with whether we should, on one extreme, even return the grant or proceed. I think our inclination to date is to proceed with trying to hang on to the 800,000, get the designs done, but then on the back end, focus primarily on those areas that we deem the highest value, which again, we can take into the conversation during the retreat in the early part of 2021. And then pursue other sections as alternates if the bids come in aggressive or if the grants come in more generously than we anticipated. Rick, I'll throw that to you to see if you want to give an update, and then I'll come back to Councilmember Sunwell, who's got his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We talked about it extensively today. I have Brian and also Mark Hoffman on to answer questions about that. But we talked about a priority list for what we think we're going to be able to do or not do. You know, staffing, if more grants are going to come in, if we really want to do this and have a shovel-ready project in case stimulus packages come in and all that unknown at this particular time. We've basically run out of time on this, and we really need to move forward and bring this council a budget. So with that being said, let me turn it over to Mark real quick, and then to Brian to kind of talk about that 800,000 and what we were thinking of today, moving that forward. So I'll go ahead and start with Mark.
Councilmember Sunwell and Jeans, I do see that your hands are up. I'll definitely come back to you in a moment once this issue's been addressed.
We'll do it quickly, Mayor.
Okay.
So we've had two discussions, if you can hear me. And last week it was centered on that grants and shovel ready were primary, and do we have the hands? The discussion today was based on reorganization of Parks and Public Works and some FTEs that are unfilled. One of the changes from last week's discussion that you were at, Mayor, to today was that there's going to be a series of projects required if the mill site is approved and going forward. So the discussion was whose hands would be doing that. And there seems to be two categories. One, capturing all low-hanging fruit right now and going forward and seeing where we end up, or shifting to a focus of what we absolutely must focus on primarily, which is mill site. So if mill site comes in and there's some sewer and water improvements and projects there, community development can lend a hand to the existing Parks and Public Works staff. And then I'll let Brian speak to if there's a pivot to maintaining all grants that we've already received and going down that road, what those current FTE fulfillment requirements would be.
Brian?
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Mark. Mark teed it up well. We're looking at a reorganization opportunity that's before us, and trying to strategize our staffing around what you've all been discussing over these last few months in the CIP before you. What we're looking at with projects on the table ahead of us that we're seeing down the road in the private side, potential developments.
Brian, I'm not convinced that the council is following or tracking with what we're talking about. Can you guys spend 2 more minutes just defining exactly what project the $800,000 grant was tied to? I mean, because some of the conversation went to a lot of other mill site related infrastructure improvements that I think maybe created some confusion. So the issue I'd raised is specifically a question about giving PSRC an answer immediately about whether we're proceeding with the designs on the phase 3 of the downtown and are going to exercise that $800,000 grant we were awarded.
We were awarded a grant for phase 3 town center, which is essentially is Northern Street to about the Green Bridge or any sort of element in that design, such as the planted medians or portions of the parking lot. There is 187,000 of matching in the current appropriated budget. The total grants were about 800,000, and it's for design of that project. We also have a CIP that pushes out construction for 7 years or so. If we were successful in designing it, it would be nearly shovel ready and could be qualified for an infrastructure or grant program, and that would be the benefit of doing it. In order to do that, we would need the FTEs and hands to work with a consultant and do that design and get that PSRC money before it expired.
Yeah, so and sorry again to interrupt, Brian. I'm just cognizant that we only have 20 minutes left here. So, and I'm not sure that this is going to concern the council members too much anyway. I just wanted to make sure they were aware as that again, we have a lot of complicated moving parts that suddenly we're reorganizing the deck chairs very quickly because of the COVID crisis on a lot of work that went into the non-utility CIP. So I don't want us going off for another half-hour discussion on too much complexity here. Suffice it to say, council, that because, as Mark Hoffman said, that the cost to the city on doing just that design portion of the phase 3 is only about $187,000. We believe it prudent to continue to tell PSRC, yes, we're proceeding to do the full design for that entire portion up to the Green Bridge or beyond. I know Councilmember Sunwall expressed in the past concerns about, and I frankly concurred on a capital project that might cost upwards of $6 or $7 million. Why are we investing so much in what looks like more of an improvement the state should be taking on, not the city? We should be focused on more of those improvements for the downtown area. So, but our thought was because the investment on the city side is relatively small for a pretty big gain from the grant, we go ahead and proceed as originally planned. And then nothing commits us to a $6 or $7 million project. Again, we could just take a piece of it, like $1 million of it, to proceed for construction, pursue grants for that, for like the median that would go into 202, announcing welcome to downtown historic Snoqualmie and some improvements like that. So Brian, I'm sorry, I know you have a lot of other important things to say about reorganization and whatnot, but I think for the sake of time, I just want to ask, so knowing that, is there any council members that say, whoa, I really have strong reservations, I don't think we should take that grant, I don't want to spend $187,000. If there's no objections, just know that's the way we're going to proceed. We just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. Are there any objections on that item? Councilmember Sunwall and Jeans, could you take your hands down for one moment so I know that you aren't raising your hands for objections on that? Councilmember Jeans? Okay, so at this point, raise your hand if there's any objections to that.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Ross.
So is the 187,000 already in the budget?
It was, yes.
Oh, in 2020?
That's my understanding, correct. Brian or Rick, do you want to address that? Or Robert? Brian, you're
Yeah.
muted.
Yeah, sorry, yes, it was there. It's budgeted.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or clarifications? All right, great. With that, then let's move on. Councilmember Sunwall and Councilmember Jeans, let's go back to you then for your questions on any other areas. Councilmember Jeans.
My two bits. I also feel that getting rid of Springbrook and getting IT the technology that they need to do the kind of job that they need to do, which will streamline the whole city. So I would like to keep that as a high priority. And I'm looking at the kinds of projects that we have. And so I'm looking at yellow and I'm looking at red, orange. And in the yellow, it seems to me the riverfront land acquisitions and the river walk phase, they are so closely related, and we have been working so long and so hard over so many years. And actually, we've made such progress, especially in the acquisitions and what we've done to get that ready to go. I would not want to touch that too much, but I'm thinking Sandy Cove Park improvements, although there are grants, that has not been on my antenna anytime recently, and I'd like us to take a real harder look. Sandy Cove Park is an opportunity for us to spend a fortune and then have a flood and then it get wiped out. So I'm afraid that because of Mother Nature's opportunity to defeat us on Sandy Cove Park, I'd like us to take a real hard look at that as one of the projects moving forward, or at least maybe adjust our sights on what we have planned there, and maybe we can find alternatives in the Parks Department that make sense to the downtown. That's what I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Jeans. I think it's a great point to raise. Just as a reminder, that had less to do with trying to protect the Sandy Cove Park than protect the upper bank and investments we're making in downtown Snoqualmie, and the fear that that erosion would continue to move to eventually it's threatening the upper bank. So good point though. Councilmember Sunwall.
Yeah, so I'm supportive of what's been proposed of sort of adopting the green and the yellow. I'm curious, we're sitting mid-August, and we haven't even sniffed a utilities rate study, and our rates run out this year. So I'm just sort of, I guess my comment in listening to all this is, so when do we get to where we actually vote on something and just move forward as it relates to this and everything we spent the last 6 months talking about?
Thank you. Councilmember Lassay and then Councilmember Ross.
I'm of similar, as the previous council members have mentioned, to generally in support of what I see here. We need to dive into the numbers a little bit beyond just the overall, and maybe we can, I'd like to have an opportunity to tighten our belts, that if the ERP is critical infrastructure, which I think it is also, I'd like to find some savings other places. Councilmember Jeans made a great point about Sandy Cove. The vast majority of the work at Sandy Cove is bank stabilization and protections of the lower part of the park. Maybe we need to revisit what we're doing up above. But I also am looking at the calendar and realizing we have been at this for more than 6 months, and we've seen many presentations, and I would like to have council have a chance to dive into this stuff as a budget review, get it to a point where we can move forward and have a budget approved. And we do have a rate study to deal with. We have a non-utility CIP. We have some ringtones that we need to change on our phones, some things that are important, but at the same time, it's it's necessary for, as a council, for us to dive into this work beyond the presentations we've been doing.
All right, thank you. This is not a CIP document, it's a budget document about non-utility CIP, and will inform the budget, the biennium budget, and that's the primary purpose of this. So by virtue of that, the council will have a second shot as they approve the budget to, you know, revisit any of these items or this list as a whole at that time. As you know, the consultants are working furiously on the rate studies right now, and plan to have those done. I believe it's in late September, early October. And then so we plan to pivot from this to starting to focus on the budget and hopefully have the budget kind of, actually, I might have messed it up. I'll kick it to the mayor. My intent, rather than going too much detail, was to kick it to Mayor Pro Tem to talk about some of that, or Robert to talk about a little bit of that schedule and getting through all this.
Why don't we take that up at Committee of the Wholes, because we have limited time to get through this, and I sense that we're close to a decision. Let's move on this, and we'll double back and update on that later.
That's a great idea, a great suggestion. Okay, we'll do that. Councilor, let's say your hand is still up. Did you want to make some further questions or points? All right. Any other questions at this time?
I think I have my hand up.
Oh, I couldn't see you. You didn't raise your virtual hand.
I'm sorry, I thought I did. I am fine with the non-utilities capital improvement plan as presented. And my concern is we keep stating, oh, we'll review it more in detail at the council retreat, which could happen in February, could happen in March. I don't want to lose 1, 2, or 3 months on sitting on some of these projects that we could get started. So if we can approve some of them at the budget before year end, that would be great. So we get momentum on some of them.
Okay, Councilor Mayhew.
Yes. So in the vein of what Councilmember Ross just suggested, and I have a sense that we're maybe coming to the end of our discussion and willing to make a decision now. Mayor, my suggestion is that we all just sort of take a show of hands. I think we have to resolve 1 or 2 things quickly first, but then just take a show of hands. Can we take this as an endorsement? Yes, administration, go prepare a budget proposal for the biennium that includes the items in the 21 and 22 columns, which means you'll be bringing proposal to us for the yellow projects, for the orange projects. And then to Councilmember Ross's her comment she just made, I think what she's suggesting is perhaps you look at the reds, and if there are some projects that you might like to bring into the biennium, at least tell us about those. I think that's what she's asking. I have separately heard that it may be that what's in the greens and the yellows and the orange, keeping in mind the green has some catch up in it. What I've heard is that maybe that's in fact about what our staff can handle, given the COVID, the restrictions, everything, that they really probably couldn't handle much more red. But maybe Councilmember Ross, her point is, if you want to bring us a few reds, we can at least hear you out on that and discuss it. But I think that what we're saying, I think there's a sense of the council now that we are ready to say, yes, go forward with this, with the one exception of, I think I'd like to see, maybe you could do a show of hands of how many people at this point share Councilmember Jean's point of view. Let's take Sandy Cove off and put it into the red for now, versus no, go ahead and leave it in the yellow for now, and then bring that to us in the biennial budget, and we'll go forward from there. I think that maybe if we do that and then take a general show of hands, we can get out of this on time with some guidance to you.
Well, before you do the show of hands, I want to clarify again, the Sandy Cove Park is in the category of capital projects with grant funding approved. So you would also be voting to essentially decline the grant funding, or I'm not sure what the question is. Rick, did you want to add something that was pertinent to some of these issues? You had your hand up.
Yeah, just real quick. I know we're running out of time, and I do appreciate everybody's input in this. So for Councilmember Ross, we were planning on doing the retreat, Councilmember Ross, to talk about projects in January. That's the goal. Okay, so we're trying to get something together. And then, so as soon as we start the biennial budget, we can right away talk about the reds, talk about what we're trying to do. Once this budget is processed as is, we will have now a roadmap for 21-22. It's 2-year budget, right? So anything can happen within those 2 years. So the idea is get this thing done. Let's move forward. In January, we'll talk about priorities, where we're going to be, and we'll know a little bit more about this COVID thing as well, if it's going to fall off the cliff or not fall off the cliff. So that was the initial plan. And the mayor is right on the Sandy Cove. It is based on grants. So we got to be very careful what we do with that. But I just wanted to emphasize that to Councilmember Ross and to the others, that we are planning on doing something the 1st of January to make sure we don't let anything go by the wayside. So thank you.
Councilman say.
I just want to make sure that people understand, I am not in favor of just pulling out Sandy Cove Improvement Project in any way. There are too many critical infrastructure and bank stabilization parts to that. And it's on the grant program, as Rick mentioned. It's not a matter of just saying, okay, we'll just tell them to take Sandy Cove out and we'll put the ERP in and we'll go forward. No, let's prepare a budget based upon this, and then let's look at the detail and where we could maybe trim some things without jeopardizing the grant process, without taking us down a path of where we're doing an all or nothing. And I don't want to do that. I want to look at it in detail. Right now, all we're looking at is big numbers, and we can all dive into our sheets and see what goes in those numbers, but it needs to be in the budget process in that format. So if we're being asked by the Mayor Pro Tem to give a show of hands of who wants to take Sandy Cove Park out, no, absolutely not. I want to look at it as part of the process.
I'm going to go to Mark because I suspect he wants to speak about that project. Then I'll go to Councilmember Jeans, who originally brought it up.
Thank you. In anticipation of a possible vote on that item, I was hoping that Jeff Hamlin can clarify lower bank stabilization and any efforts that are already underway in 2020 versus this item and these two dollar amounts for 2021, 2022, and if those are upper bank.
Sorry. Sorry, what was your question again? It was the improvements with regard to Sandy
Mayor,
Cove.
point of order. We don't have time to get into a detailed discussion at this point. We've got 5 minutes.
Yeah,
It's probably best to just get questions, then we have to address it next time.
I'll sustain. Councilmember Jeans.
Actually, I would want to agree with everything that Matt said. I didn't want to kick it off. I just wanted to look at it and maybe we can refine it. And so if that is something to vote upon, but I don't want to kick it out.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Okay, so the only concern I have is the timing of when these grants fade away. Can we get some information about when we need to apply for those grants and when that project must start?
Okay, perhaps we could get some information during the committee of the whole at the council meeting. It's a fairly light agenda tonight, so if things allow, we'll have some time to pick this up and hopefully put a bow on it and come to some conclusion or direction. Tonight, Councilor Mayhew, did you want to say one or two closing comments or?
No, I just wanted to encourage us, folks. I think we're ready to take, I think we've resolved Councilmember Jean's, the point he was trying to raise. I think perhaps I misunderstood him anyway. I think that we're ready to say yes. We endorse this. As Councilmember Lissay pointed out, these are high level, but at this level, we're ready to endorse this. Please go prepare a biennial budget using this as guidance, knowing that we've endorsed this. Yes, we'll look into the details, but we endorse this big picture as the way to go forward. Maybe we could do a show of hands, because I think there's support for that.
Well,
I've raised my
sorry,
hand.
Mayor, I was hoping you would ask them for it. I wasn't.
Well, I understand, yeah, but I'm cognizant we have 3 minutes left before the council meeting. I'm trying to take a little break here before the, like a 5-minute break before the
You
council
can
meeting.
just ask them to put their blue hands up if they endorse moving forward on this.
All right, is all those in favor of endorsing this current program and in its kind of high level general form, please put your hand up. It's basically a thumbs up. All right, I see 6 hands. One keeps going on and off, or Councilor Hall always keeps popping on and off.
Intentionally.
That means his thumb is
You
sideways.
didn't give me a sideways on it, just up or down.
All right. So yeah, if you could, this is, I can live with it. This is, I'm for it. That's against it. Okay, so good enough.
So,
All right.
so Mayor, it looks like you got 5 endorsements, 1 maybe endorsement and 1 not endorsement. So I think that gives administration what they need to go prepare to finish preparing the budget proposal.
Very good, Council. Thank you, Council,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem. And with that said, I think it's still important to pick up at least sort of the calendar or the adjustments to the calendar of the work plan. I thought Councilmember Sunwall asked, at least posed a great question is, hey, how are we going to get all through this and what's that look like? And the Mayor Pro Tem, I know working with Robert and with Rick has done a great job constantly making adjustments to that. And they can, I think we're overdue for an update on that and get your input. I see 3 hands up. I'm trying to take a break before the council meeting. I have Sunwall, Assay, and Holloway. I don't know if you're voting still or there we go. Okay, so with that, let's take a break. We will reconvene at 7:05 to start the council meeting at 7:05. So I'll give you a little bit of a generous 7-minute break. And keep, as I understand, we're just going to keep this window open. So don't exit or anything. Just go ahead and put your video or your we'll see everybody back at 7:05 sharp. I'm going to ask the council members to please turn their videos back on so I know everybody's returned and ready to start. It's now 7:05. All right, very good. So I now call the Snoqualmie City Council meeting to order. I'd ask the city clerk to please take the roll call.
Councilmember Jeans,
Here.
Councilmember Ross,
Here.
Councilmember Holloway,
Here.
Councilmember Mayhew,
Here.
Councilmember Lassay,
Here.
Councilmember Sundwall,
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Here,
Mayor Larson.
I am here. Thank you, Jody. Council may have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented tonight.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All right. Hearing none. Oh, Councilmember Mayhew. Oh, I have two questions. Yeah, Councilmember Mayhew, go ahead.
Yes, I move to reorder the executive session that is currently the second item on the list, to reorder it to occur immediately prior to committee of the whole report.
Okay. Is there any objection to that, council?
yes.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Councilmember Shepherd.
So I'm not going to be attending the executive session.
I believe the executive session was perhaps for your benefit. Is it needed if Councilmember Shepherd is not in attendance, Councilmember Mayhew or Mayor Pro Tem?
The executive session is for her benefit. If she chooses not to attend, that is her choice. We'll hold it nonetheless.
Is there a reason why you won't be in attendance, Councilmember Shepherd?
It's a long, you want a long answer or?
No, I just want to understand as your duty as a city council member why you won't be attending.
I don't know what is the attorney on?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so I have a legal question. If I am the subject of the executive session, and I know that council members are not required to go into executive session, but anyway, I have reasons that I don't want to go into it, but I'm just wondering, since I may be the target of the reason for it, if I shouldn't be there anyway.
I assume that question was for the city attorney.
Right.
I'm trying to get my video up here. Good evening, council members. My understanding, Councilmember Shepherd, and I'll defer to the council, but given the subject matter that provide you an opportunity to provide information in the executive session setting as opposed to in public. And I'll again defer to Councilmember Mayhew, Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew or others. But if council wanted to invite your participation for that as under the topic that's noted, it would be appropriate for you to be in attendance if you chose to.
Yes, actually, I have a question for the Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem, as I understood, this executive session was again to afford the Councilmember Shepherd an opportunity to answer questions. In other words, about the falsehoods, the false statements that she had made in public, and her answers to those said, well, I can't provide the information because it's kind of confidential. There were other council members that said, well, that seems disingenuous since you were afforded an opportunity in executive session. You did not provide those in executive session. So in an abundance of fairness, as I understand, you're offering her another opportunity prior to actions to provide additional information answering those questions. If she declines, is there a need for an executive session?
Well, that's exactly right, Mayor. There was a sense that Councilmember Shepherd felt at our last council meeting that she couldn't fully answer the questions that were put to her. And so by having an executive session, that would remove her inability to provide those answers. And so to be completely fair and give her every opportunity to provide answers. And so that's the purpose of the executive session. And so we should hold that. And if she chooses not to provide answers, that is her choice. But there would not be any concern that the council had not, in fact, afforded her every single opportunity to provide that information.
Okay, I'm just asking because it's a rather complicated process, you know, where we all have to log off of this meeting and then log into an executive session. If at this point, as we're setting the agenda, she is stating, I will not participate in the executive session, I do not have interest in that offer, then it seems we can then take it off the agenda, and you can still satisfy that you were making that gesture, at least offering one more opportunity. Councilmember Sunwell.
Yeah, I think it might be a short one, but I think we still hold it.
Okay, so, all right, then everybody's willing to do the.
Yeah, and actually this isn't really germane to the agenda. The agenda was simply to move it, not whether to have it. That would require a separate motion.
Okay, I'll sustain. Councilor Shepherd.
Yes, I'd like to take the warrants off of the consent agenda.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions on the agenda? Other than the warrants, and we're going to move the executive session to, was that at the committee of the whole, Councilor Mayhew? When exactly was that?
Immediately prior to council of the whole report, yes. Immediately prior to council of the whole reports.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Council? Councilor Shepherd, you still have your hand up?
No.
All right, thank you. All right, with hearing nothing further, all those in favor? Say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. All right, the motion passes, and we will move on. So we now move on to public hearings, presentations, proclamations, and appointments. And at this time, I appoint Michael Rissman, Christina Nguyen, and Jolyn Johnson to the Salary Commission for a term of 2 years. May I have a confirmation, Council? A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to confirm the appointments as stated. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on these appointments prior to action? All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see any hands up on the attendees. So, Councilmember Jeans, and we'll come back for any discussion from the council.
Mr. Mayor, there is a public, one of the public members has their hand up.
Sorry, I just missed that. Wayne Russell, if you could unmute Wayne Russell, please, and let him speak.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, is this public comment period or just on the appointments?
Just on the appointments, Wayne. You just have
okay.
A couple.
I'll pass on that.
All right, thank you. All right, Council, Councilor Jeans, go ahead.
I read the applications. I mean, I sort of like the biographies, but I've read the applications of the 3 applicants. And I know these people are not new to us, but it was refreshing to read those applications. These are 3 extraordinary people, so I commend you for choosing them, and I hope that they will serve us well.
Thank you, Councilor Jeans. Councilor Lasay.
I echo that sentiment from Councilmember Jeans. My question is really about what is the, well, the Salary Commission can be appointed. What is the process at which, how often they are mandated to review salaries? I believe we just had one a couple of years ago. I'm not sure whether even having a Salary Commission would have any duties at this time. So I'm kind of curious what that timeline would be.
I'll let Jody answer that.
According to the ordinance that was adopted by council 2 years ago, the Salary Commission is required to review elected officials' salaries and benefits every 2 years. So we are at the last time was in 2018. We are following the ordinance by appointing commissioners this evening and have them review it in time for the budget.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions on this item? Oh, Councilmember Shepherd.
Is it, can we make a motion to skip it for this year?
You cannot, as I understand. I mean, that was the purpose of the ordinance, was to take the authority for salaries and compensation out of the hands of the council and give it to an objective third party, to remove the politics from the decision. So we had the same sentiment, was good grief with the COVID crisis and all that is, can't we just pass this year? But the answer is nope. The way the ordinance is reading, unless you revise or rescind the ordinance, that's what we need to do. Councilmember Sunwell.
Yeah, let's not assume that they're going to meet and decide to raise. They
Yeah.
could meet and decide to lower. So I think this is exactly why you have an ordinance that specifies a certain number of years. So there's nothing in the exterior or the external environment that dictates whether you do or you don't. It just happens. And whatever they come up with, we're required to accept. Hold, raise, or lower.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, I would just, I would just point out also to council members that next year is an election year. That's be the middle of this biennium, including election for our mayor. And so now's the time to set the salaries or review whether the salaries are appropriate for people that may wish to run for either council seats or for the position of mayor. As a growing city, that's something that seems to me appropriate that we would have looked at every couple of years. So I saw it seems perfectly appropriate, especially given that next year is an important election year. And so this needs to be done now as part of the biennial budget.
All right, thank you. If there's no other questions on this, then all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Motion passes. So at this time, we're going to move on to citizens' comments, and I believe all those in attendance know how this works. So I'll, for the sake of time, pass on the usual instructions around that. Wayne, you had your hand up earlier. I don't know if that was for the general. Yeah, go ahead, sir. So you have 3 minutes to comment at this time. Or Wayne, before you begin, who's staff person, or Rick, or who's doing a clock up here for their benefit? There we go.
Mayor, I'm doing it. It's Rick. I got the clock up on the screen.
Yeah. So Wayne, if you could just scroll to where you can see Rick Rudamedkin's clock up there, that would be great. And then go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, Wayne Russell, 8438 Meadowbrook / Wildcat Way Southeast. The first thing I wanted to bring up was the fact of the ginormous garage sale that occurred on Park and Meadowbrook this past weekend, the most fun I've had in the last 7 months. But I'd like to thank the police department and public works for getting signage up for the citizens that had problems with parking. And the police response was just awesome and really great support. And the funds that were raised were for wells in Uganda, which I believe $64,000 was raised. And also not just for there, the people, Don and Lena Baumsgaard that ran it, also gave $1,000 to CarePoint. Imperials of Youth, they also donated $5,000 and gave the food bank. I believe it was either $2,000 for sure and maybe $3,000. So I really have to applaud everybody for the support that they did give to these people. And one other thing that I have right now is my neighbors, the big complaint they have is at 8416 Meadowbrook Way, a mailbox was put up in front of the building and a yellow line was painted in front of it for no parking. And the owner of the building puts cones out there, which he was doing before the line was even there for private parking. I believe one of my neighbors for sure I know has already contacted the city about it. And they're really upset about it because when high school's in session, our parking is very limited. And we do have a shortage of parking down here in Meadowbrook, especially when Sigello's is making wine. So really we need to have that addressed. I don't know if it was approved by the city or not, because I was told by the owner that he contacted the city to paint the yellow and that there were not enough people to be able to paint the yellow striping out in front of by the mailbox. There's space on the mailbox stand in front of my house. And even with the new part of Meadowbrook that you folks just put in, mailboxes are married with a minimum of 2 on a stand. And I don't know how we're giving this kind of consideration to a non-resident when citizens are being jeopardized, including the residents of the Colonial Square apartments, because that's where their guests can park. And really, we're not supposed to park in the high school parking lot, but a lot of people have been. And I still really think where the old trailer park was, it should be given consideration to open that up as a public parking space down here in Meadowbrook. I really thank you for your time. I'm glad to be with you. And I know you're doing flood stuff tonight, and Wayne might sign off early because you know my feelings on most of the flooding issues. I really appreciate your time. I'm glad to see you're doing the good work, even though this sort of reminds me of the Muppet Show. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Wayne. I'll ask the staff to address discuss that item that you brought up about the striping tomorrow at their executive staff meeting. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment at this time? All right, seeing no one's hands go up, I do want to thank the 4 citizens that did take the time to join us tonight. So with that, we will move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below will be acted by one motion. Action items include, again, I think at this point, all we have is the minutes for the July 27, 2020 Roundtable and regular City Council meeting. So do we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as stated. Is there any discussion? Any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? All right, seeing no further discussion or questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those that oppose say nay. All right, motion passes. Moving on to ordinances. Community Development Committee, Agenda Bill 20.
Point of order, Mayor.
I'm
I
sorry.
think we take the items that were pulled off of the consent agenda now immediately following the consent agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good point. All right.
Additional point of order, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Could we maybe get the video screen back to showing multiples? I think, Rick's beachfront vacation view is quite nice, but I think that's all we're seeing right now.
What you need to do is go to the view up in the top right corner. You got kicked into a singular view. Gallery view.
I reject my request. Never mind.
Okay.
We reject it too.
Yeah, that was a setting on your side. All right, thanks. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for reminding me on the point of order there. So at this point, we're going to immediately take up the, as per our new protocol, the approval of the warrants. So if I could have a motion and a second on the approval of the warrants.
Move to approve the claims and warrants as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the warrants as stated by the Councilor Mayhew. Councilor Mayhew, do you have any comments since you're the chair of the auditing or F&A?
Just confirm to the council that the F&A committee has performed the review procedures as outlined in our ordinance that's been amended for the period of the pandemic emergency, and the F&A committee recommended approval of these claims.
Thank you. Councilor Shepherd.
So again, I am not going to be approving the warrants because I'm not able to look at them.
Okay. Any further discussion, council? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion passes 6-1. So with that, we'll move on to ordinances. Agenda Bill 20075, ordinance related to flood hazard regulations, adopting amendments to chapter 15.12 and sections 15.20.030 and 19.12.150 of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. This was introduced on July 27th and is ready for action tonight. So the summary statement should have already been read, and if you could just read the motion. Councilor Roth.
Move to approve ordinance number
1237.
Relating to flood hazard regulations, adopting amendments to chapter 15.12 and sections 15.20.030 and 19.12.150 of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. And from the, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 1237 as stated by Councilor Ross. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Seeing no one come forward, we'll open it for discussion. Councilor Ross, did you want to cue this up?
I do. So again, this is the second reading. The Community Development Committee approved moving it forward to the full council with corrections and recommending council approval. It included FEMA requirements, CRS requirements, and city amendments. And there is a FEMA deadline of August 19th that must be met in order to maintain our CRS rating and flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program. And it also impacts whether residents can apply for loans. One of the goals is to achieve class 4 CRS rating. We currently are at class 5. And this achieving class 4 would provide additional insurance discounts for our residents at 30%. Currently, class 5 is 25%. So there are several changes in the flood hazard regulations that would help to achieve this.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Ross. Is there any other questions or discussion, council? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you. Council, before I move on, I just want to make a point that it's very typical for babies at about 85 to 6 months old to let out loud screams and squeals because they're finding their voices and they're very delighted. My grandson's in the other room and occasionally you'll hear a scream. I just wanted to assure you everything is okay. It's just squeals of delight. So sorry about any distraction.
Sure. Sure.
Well, it's good to have a vocal participant other than Wayne.
Right.
And because, you know, some council members do the same thing at various times too.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your understanding. All right, moving on to reports. Any report for Parks and Public Works Committee?
No, I will say we are, in our next committee meeting, we are going to take up, so those wondering whether they should attend, we are going to take up sort of a deeper dive into the prioritization of the sections of the parkway and sort of the order in which they might be replaced and repaired. And then on a related topic, the skinnier streets in our city called sidewalks got some attention, unfortunately, in the last 24 hours. And so we're just going to revisit sort of where we are and just a level set on that sidewalk replacement program and sort of just as a reminder of what's coming next and what the funding is. So we definitely are on fixing sidewalks. We just obviously can't do them all at once.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Fennell. Community Development Committee report.
Yes. So community development, we met with representatives for the Hampton Inn regarding the request to drop the Hilton brand and create their own franchise under the name of Hotel America. And we discussed the proposed development agreement changes and their key standards document. And so if they want to pursue this further, then our community development department will bring forward an agenda bill to our community development committee and then on to council, and it would be a major modification and quasi-judicial.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, Finance Administration Committee report.
No report.
All right, Public Safety Committee, any report?
We haven't had, we've actually put off the last two meetings, we've canceled them, but I'm told that we'll have a public safety meeting this next Monday, where I believe the administration is going to start with a presentation, a budget presentation regarding fire and police, and so it'll be good to dive into that. That's all.
All right, thank you, Councilor Dean. So council, at this time, for the prior decision on the agenda tonight, we will be going into an executive session. Bob Burbank, I don't have, oh, hang on a second. This time, the council is going to executive session to receive and evaluate complaints and charges brought against the public office. Executive session is anticipated to last approximately 1.5 hour perhaps shorter.
Mr. Mayor, you're not coming through clearly. You're garbled.
Right. I'll stop my video and see if that helps. Is that better?
That
Yeah.
is better. Thank you.
All right.
Better picture too.
All right, at this time, the council will go into an executive session to receive and evaluate complaints or charges brought against a public officer pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, Section 1F. The executive session is anticipated to last approximately 1/2 hour, likely much shorter. There may be action following. I request that Rick Rudamedkin and Bob Sturbank join the executive session. Please remain on the current Zoom link. For all others, the meeting will reconvene shortly. So again, council, leave your link for this meeting open, but we'll have to, those going into executive session will have to leave this meeting, use your link for the executive session, and then again come back and then leave that eventually and come back into this one. So we'll see everybody, at least council members and Bob Sturbank and Rick Rudamedkin in executive session shortly.
You council members should have an email and then a reminder from Jody. It has 2 links, one for this meeting, one for executive session. You should be able to go ahead and go in it. Thank you.
All right, I think we just about got everybody back into regular session here. Give me one moment. Just checking real quick on council members. Looks like everybody's back in. All right, with that, we're moving on to on Committee of the Whole, Agenda Bill 20076, Resolution 1544, censoring Council Member Mary Margaret Peggy Shepherd.
Mayor, can we have that brought on the screen?
We'll wait for the staff to pull that up. Councilor Shepherd, did you have a point to make while we're pulling that up?
I'm just getting ready to respond.
Okay. Well, we'll wait till the motion in the second. The motion's on the floor.
Okay.
Kevin, is someone working on putting that up on the screen?
Yes, sir. We're just trying to pull it up.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Mayhew, did you want, or Mayor Pro Tem, did you want them to open the resolution itself, or just is this sufficient?
This is sufficient. I just read in the summary statement in motion. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Proper operation of democratic representative government requires the public have confidence in the integrity of its government officials. State law vests the City Council with broad authority to adopt rules governing the conduct of elected and appointed city officials and employees. The City Council has adopted a code of ethics which, among other things, generally prohibits city officers and employees from making false statements or representations of public records or documents, or in willful disregard of the truth of such statements or representations. Move to adopt Resolution 1544, censuring Council Member Mary Margaret Peggy Shepherd.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve Agenda Bill 20076 as stated by Councilor Mayhew. Is there any member of the public, or actually Council or Mayor Pro Tem, is there anything you'd like to add at this time prior to opening it up to the public?
Nothing to add. This has been put into the form of a resolution. The items that were discussed 2 weeks ago at the council meeting as requested by a majority of the council members. I have no other comment.
All right, thank you. So with that, we'll open it to public comment prior to council discussion. I see that Peggy's husband, Richard Shield, would like to speak. If we could unmute him and give him an opportunity to speak for 2 minutes. Mr. Shield, when you're ready.
Thank you. Richard Shield. My address is 6701 West Crestview Loop Southeast. And as the mayor noted, although I am Council Member Shepherd's husband, I am not speaking as her husband. I am speaking as a voter of the city. I am among the many voters in the city who elected Council Member Shepherd. And I do feel that much of the action here is attempting to take away the effectiveness of my vote by falsely accusing Councilmember Shepherd of making false statements. In particular, I would like to note that the resolution claims that the public statements of Councilmember Shepherd are demonstrably false. However, after attending last week or the 2 weeks ago meeting, I heard no presentation of any evidence that these statements were false. I only heard presentation from Councilmember Shepherd indicating responses to each of them and indicating how they were truthful, not that they were false. And I challenged the council to consider deeply, if you're saying that these are demonstrably false statements, that you would prove it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shield. I don't see anybody else with their hand up from members of the public. I'll give one last chance. We do have one other member attending. Seeing no one raising their hands at this point, then we'll come back to council for further discussion. Councilmember Shepherd, go ahead.
Okay, so I am going to be responding to the resolution 1544, and I am looking at the ninth whereas the city council is aware of public statements by council member Peggy Shepherd that are demonstrably false and that were made either without evidence and thus in willful disregard of their truth or falsity, or made after evidence of their falsehood was provided to her. My response to that is I have made no statements and that have been demonstrated to be false. All statements referred to in this resolution as being made by me are true. The claim that they are false is false. The Office for Victims of Crime talks about the pressures to violate confidentiality. Details regarding the sexual assault case cannot be shared with City Council. I am a friend of the person that reported a sexual assault in Snoqualmie.
Point of order.
Go ahead, point of order, Mr.
Comments are
Councilmember.
not germane to the discussion. No one is accused, no one has asked Councilmember Shepherd to reveal such details.
I disagree.
I'll sustain the point of order, Councilmember Shepherd. The reason why is no one was ever asking you to reveal the identity of the alleged victim or details of the case. Your comments that the council takes up in the resolution were more general in nature, or as simple as what exactly was a conflict of interest and so forth. So I will.
That is the detail that I can't share because of this pressure. It would violate confidentiality. It was shared with Detective Bruton, and this council has been made aware of that. And if the detective is not sharing that information, I don't know what to tell you.
I'm going to sustain the Councilmember Mayhew's comment because again, if you're saying that you on principle adhere to the confidentiality of sensitive, serious case investigations, then for equal reasons, it seems unseemly that you would make assertions of fact about that case based on confidential information. You're basically, whether it's accusing an individual or an entire department or an administration, you're not providing them an opportunity to defend themselves if you're not providing the information to the basis of that, or you're saying that information is confidential and shouldn't be shared.
It should
Therefore,
be, it should be done with the FBI, not with the council.
The assertion you're sharing publicly shouldn't be shared publicly by virtue of your own arguments.
That's false.
Okay, well, that's your opinion. Do you have anything else to say, again, pertaining to the items in the resolution?
So I would like to continue about the confidentiality aspect of things. I feel the council does not understand the need for confidentiality around sexual assault.
Of course, we understand that.
I think what they're trying to say, Councilmember Mayo, is they're concerned that you don't understand because you're making statements, very public statements about a sensitive confidential case using confidentiality as your cover, and yet you're revealing or implying assertions of fact based on confidential information that you're saying by virtue of your own principles you shouldn't be sharing publicly.
So this is
yeah, go ahead.
Council members should not make assertions about the motivations of other council members.
Sustained. Councilmember Shepherd, if you could just stick to the facts of the resolution or to the details of the resolution itself.
Well, I think that we are not going to agree because the reason that I don't share more details with you, other than the detective actually has one thing that you claim that you didn't have, and this police says they don't have. It was reported to the police department, which I felt was the proper agency to hear that there was a conflict of interest. So I don't know why the police department's not sharing that with you. So I think they may have some similar problems with confidentiality. And this is not appropriate for city council to be assessing. It's really something that needs to go to another agency outside of the city.
I think the council and all of us and I and my administration would agree wholeheartedly with your comment that this is something a city council shouldn't be investigating or assessing. This is precisely what you as a city council member have inappropriately been doing. You should not be involving yourself in a felony investigation
Oh,
and then
you don't understand the problem. I'm sorry.
making any kind of public comments and assertions about that without knowing the full facts of that investigation.
Mayor, question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Holloway.
Statements by Councilman Shepherd is in regards to the number 1 item in the list of items. Why don't we set that aside? I'd still like to hear responses to the remaining list of items in the censure.
In other words, can we just finish?
Yeah.
No, I mean, this is one of, I don't know, I didn't count them off to the hand side there, but this is one of more than 4 items in which we said false statements were made. We can set that one off to the side. Let's address the other ones.
I think we're perhaps misunderstanding Councilmember Shepherd. She's not even addressing the items 1, 2, 3, or in any sort of order. She's simply at a higher level, just attacking the entire, again,
That's
undermining.
false. That's
Can we
false.
just let her finish?
Matt, let Councilmember Shepherd speak for herself.
All right, then I'll let her. Well, again, I'm trying to address a councilmember's point of order, Councilmember Mayhew's point of order about the appropriateness of the comments she's making, and I've sustained that many of her comments are not relevant to the points of the resolution.
I'm going through the resolution from top
All right,
to bottom.
continue, Councilmember Shepherd.
Okay. So, as far as section 1, findings of facts, the Snoqualmie City Council hereby makes the following findings of facts. Snoqualmie City Council member Mary Margaret Peggy Shepherd made false statements and/or statements made with willful disregard for their truth or falsity. An official city email, on social media, or in public oral statements during the course of Snoqualmie City Council meetings. Again, I made no false statements. The content of council member Shepherd's statements. Let's see. Okay, and then the content of council member Shepherd's statements or the context in which they were made, i.e. during council meeting or using her official city email address, identified her as a Snoqualmie City Council member. Again, I made no false statements. Section 1, paragraph B1. There is a statement that says there has been no allegation received by the Snoqualmie Police Department. This is a lie. I was interviewed by Detective Bruton shortly after the report of a sexual assault, at which time I told him numerous times that there is a conflict of interest. And again, an advocate works at the direction of the victim and should share information only at the victim's request and with the victim's informed consent. And so, so I have seen details. An advocate works at the direction of the victim and should only share information but the victim's request that I will not share with the city council. Why is there an assumption that there's no evidence? And then I'd state in regard to the alleged complaint about a police officer in 2019, I doubt that complaint went anywhere. So this is my opinion, and my opinion is based on the Nick Hogan hire while being investigated. I have a hard time believing that there was a real investigation that happened before we actually hired Nick Hogan. Let's see. A brief stop of the suspected, okay, this is about the shoplifting. And that there was a brief stop of a suspected shoplifter who was in fact innocent, that unfortunately your case is not an isolated case. The police department likes to silo cases, whereas I don't. The assumption that this is a false statement assumes that I am limiting the reference of case to shoplifting, which I don't have. So for me, that's not a false statement, it's just cases in general. And then we get into the violation for the civil service commission, which is, I sent a response, it's 25 pages, detailed response, and I sent it to the city clerk on Friday, August 7th. File name is AB 20-076, resolution 1544, Shepherd responses. So if you want to refer back to that, you can work through that as far as why I think that we are not following all of the Civil Service Commission rules. And that's it.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember Lissay, then Holloway, then Ross.
Councilmember Shepherd referred to a document of response. She was requested to provide that document after the previous council meeting. It was ultimately not received to the city until late on Friday after the publication of the agenda. And then per procedure, we've been asked to add it to the agenda. Move to add council members' response to the resolution 1544 documents.
Do I have a second, Council?
Second.
All right, thank you. Motion a second to add the council member's testimony to just simply to the exhibits and resolution 1544 stated by Councilmember Lissay. All those in favor say aye.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lissay. Point of order. You're muted, Councilmember Lissay. You're still muted.
There should be some discussion before we go directly to a vote.
All right, I assume maybe there had been enough, or there wasn't any further. Is there any further discussion prior to a vote? All right, Councilmember Ross.
When we approved the agenda, Councilmember Shepherd did not request to have it added to the agenda.
It's being, I'll allow for it because he's simply doing an amendment to the current motion on the table. All right, Councilor, I don't know if the hands are up. All hands should only be up pertaining to the lesser motion or the secondary motion now from the original motion. You have any questions on this, Councilor Mayhew?
I would just comment that typically when items are provided to the council in response to an agenda bill, they're made part of the record of the council meeting, but we don't typically take pro and con statements for other resolutions and make them part of the agenda bill. That seems like, I mean, it seems like it ought to be part of the record, but I don't understand why it'd be part of the agenda bill.
I think Councilor Lissay's request is to make that a part of the record in the agenda bill or an exhibit essentially. But your point is well taken. Councilor Holloway? You're muted, Councilor Holloway.
Sorry, was on mute. In regards to item 2, Councilman Rashid stated in writing in regard to alleged complaint against officer in 2019. Councilmember Shepherd was part and parcel of executive sessions and resolution in regards to that police officer. That statement is blatantly incorrect, and she participated in I believe participated in the resolution that followed and separated us from that officer. So to say that there are absolutely no falsehoods in there is incorrect.
Councilor Holloway, at this point, we're only debating the merits of the motion to amend that Councilor Lissay brought forward as to whether to add her, or are you speaking to the statements, her written statements, and whether you want those included or not? Is that what you're?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm in favor. Never mind.
All right, thank you. Councilor Lissay, then Councilor Shepherd. And then Jean.
All right, this is where I'm going to go tiny dinosaur on you. Councilmember Shepherd was requested to provide a written copy of her statement. She has provided an additional clarification that was not a part of the record, that was not a part of the discussion. She's also included changes in her response and other additional clarifications in her response. Because of that, I think what we need to do, and this is going to, I don't know how easy this is going to be, and the easy part may be just to vote no against adding it to the record, but additional items that were not a part of the discussion at the previous council meeting should not be a part of the record of this resolution. So move to extract all items other than Councilmember Shepherd's direct statement during the council meeting from the information provided to council.
I'm not hearing a second, so I think it dies for lack of a second, Councilmember Lasay. Councilmember Jeans.
Well, censure is a very serious item. Everybody involved this evening realizes that. And I think that there are several very good reasons not to add this to the record. But I think Councilmember Shepherd we should bend over backwards to give her the opportunity to be heard. And that opportunity to be heard, she sent that to the city at late Friday. It would be perfectly appropriate to keep it out. But I think we should let it in because I want there to be no question from anyone, especially our citizens, that we denied her to be heard. She asked not to attend the executive session where she could have been heard also, but so she is now limited to the opportunity to what she submitted on Friday is her opportunity to be heard, and I'd like that to be in the record.
Thank you, Councilmember Jeans. Councilmember Shepherd, then Councilmember Lasay.
Well, I was going to respond to the fact that I was around when I guess one of the police officers was let go. I wasn't around when that happened. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, I stand corrected.
All right, Councilmember Lasay.
I just wanted to add that in light of council not choosing to amend the items to just the specific record of the statement that Councilmember Shepherd made, I do not support approving including any of the information into the record.
Are you withdrawing your amendment?
No, I'm not. I want council to vote on it.
Okay.
You're right.
All right.
Do it.
Councilmember Lasay, your hand is still up. All right. I don't see any further hands up for discussion on Councilmember Lasay's amendment. So we're just voting on the amendment here. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Wait.
You're voting on the amendment, Councilmember Sunwall, as to whether to include her written statement as an exhibit on the agenda.
Okay. I felt like there were different votes going on there, so.
So move for roll call.
Well, I heard 4 in favor, so I think we're there, but go ahead. Let's go do Jody, could you please do a roll call vote on Councilmember Lasay's amendment to add Councilmember Shepherd's testimony, written testimony, to Resolution 1544 to the record, to the as an exhibit.
Councilmember Jeans.
Aye.
Councilmember Ross.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloway.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayhew.
Aye.
Councilmember Lasay.
Nay.
Councilmember Sundwall.
Aye.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Aye.
6-1 in favor.
Right, so with that motion passed, we are now back to the original motion on whether to approve the censure of Councilmember Shepherd. Any further discussion? Councilmember Mayhew.
I would just say that the entire American system of justice is built on the notion that someone is innocent until proven guilty. In this case, we have Councilmember Shepherd making assertions, accusations. The assumption is not for the person she accuses to prove that they are innocent of the charges. That is against everything the entire American system, 250 some years of American system of justice is built on. The standard is that the accuser, in this case, Councilmember Shepherd, must support with evidence the charges and claims and accusations she has made. We have given her extensive opportunity to do so at 2 council meetings in the form of written submissions and in the form of an executive session if there was something that needed executive privilege to protect it. She has not provided evidence for these assertions. And I just want to be clear that that this notion that somehow the city has to prove these things false would completely turn the American system of justice on its head.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. Thank you. With that, I don't see any further hands up for comment, so I'll move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right. The motion to censure Councilmember Mary Margaret Peggy Shepherd has been approved on a vote of 6-1.
You're muted, Matt.
Sorry about that, folks.
You're still muted.
Okay, better? Sorry about that. There was a discussion at the last council meeting that, or Councilmember Holloway had made a motion to remove Councilmember Shepherd's from her appointment as liaison to the Watershed Forum and request that the mayor can bring a recommendation for a new representative from the council forward. He was requested to postpone that until tonight's meeting. So I want to make sure we respect that that motion was postponed or sort of postponed until tonight. Councilmember Holloway, you want to reiterate that motion or confirm?
I am more focusing on, well, let's go on. Recent communications from Councilman Shepherd has demonstrated a high level of distrust concerning and animosity toward and disrespect for, end quote, city administration, mayor, and city council. As council is aware, this is just the latest in litany of actions and statements to demonstrate animosity toward the council. Further, the misrepresentation or ignorance of facts and the incorporation of events not having bearing demonstrates the council members' ongoing detrimental contribution to the actions of the council and the potential impact to the citizens we represent. The council and administration for over 2 years has gone to exceptional lengths to facilitate the council members' hunt for evil with the hope that in finding the contrary, an eventual light of understanding, respect, and joint work on behalf of those we represent might result. This has not occurred. As such, I feel it ill-advised for this council to request this council member to represent it in any liaison position. Councilmember Shepherd currently represents the council in the Snoqualmie Watershed Forum. I'm putting forward no position in regards to Councilmember Shepherd's committee membership. This would be a different set of considerations at a higher bar as a representation of behalf of the community, not the council. I am strictly talking council representation. I move to remove Councilmember Shepherd's responsibility as Snoqualmie council member representative on the Snoqualmie Watershed Forum and request the pro tem to bring forward to the council a recommendation for new council representation as is time-wise convenient. May I have a second?
Point of order?
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
This motion has already been made and seconded and is already on the floor. It was simply the dealing with that was postponed to this meeting.
Okay.
Would have been quicker if you just seconded it again, but go on.
Yeah, I think for the sake of the record, I figured it was cleaner just to have him restate the motion in the second, So since we're 2 seconds from getting there, I'll just allow it.
Second.
Yeah, so we have a motion, and a second, as stated by Councilmember Holloway. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this item prior to action? Seeing no one move forward, open it for discussion from the council. Is there any questions or comments from the council on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? Sorry, Councilmember Holloway, did you want to add more?
Well, just to follow up again, irregardless of what we just discussed prior, Councilmember Shepherd has demonstrated and stated a distrust for the council and demonstrated disrespect for the council. And again, at that stage, irregardless of the rest of the stuff, I feel it ill-advised for us to have her as representation of the council.
All right, thank you. If there's no further discussion, then we'll go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, again, the motion passes 6-1. Councilmember Mayhew, did you have a follow-up comment?
Yes, Mayor, is it appropriate on the agenda for me at this time to make a motion to appoint a council liaison position?
I think given the circumstances, and so as not to lose time, if there's a watershed meeting coming up soon, that would be appropriate. So I'll allow it.
All right, I move to.
Assuming there's no opposition or no protest from the council. Councilmember Holloway, go ahead.
Jim, if you're voting in alignment with my prior statements to you in regards to this, I would appreciate a conversation prior to making that. If it's a separate appointment, go for it.
All right, I'll withdraw my, I don't have a motion at this time, Mayor Larson.
All right, thank you.
That felt like code. Did I miss a meeting?
I suspect, given Councilmember Holloway's past experience with the watershed forum, he was probably going to be the one that the Mayor Pro Tem would tag. So, given that Councilmember Holloway wants to approve.
I really thought this was going to be a watershed moment, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
You've been saving it, haven't you?
I don't believe there was any other items for committee of the whole, unless I'm forgetting some other notes. Please remind me at this time.
Mayor, there is an item on there in case you had any items for COVID-19 update. I don't know if you do have any.
Oh, okay. I'll throw that to Rick. Rick, did you have anything to have you or any of the staff do updates on COVID? I've been a little bit unplugged since late last week.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council, Mayor Pro Tem. We don't have really anything else to add. I think we talked about it before. Our return to work plan is in place. Chief Carrera is handling that. Chief is back from vacation. He's on this call. But we are in alignment with King County right now and with the city of Seattle and other agencies as far as we are telecommuting still and also occupying small segments of City Hall. So as staff comes in and out, but we're going to talk a little bit about it more tomorrow. But right now, definitely, we are telecommuting, at least with a lot of our employees. Obviously, essential workers and others can come. Our essential workers are here. Others can come into City Hall, and they have been. I've been going in as well, signing documents and other things. So we're just continuing to monitor it as the governor rolls out some things. And but that's all I have. Chief, do you have anything to add to that, or anything to add on the COVID, on the crisis as we see it now?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Welcome back, by the way. So with that, Mayor, that's all we have for now. We're going to continue to update council as we continue moving forward because things, change weekly, monthly. So we'll continue to do that and then just keep our processes moving forward. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Rick. Councilmember Jeans, you have a question?
Is there some way we can find out if we have mail and if we can get mail delivered or just alert us? I guess I'd like to know. I've got 2 pieces of junk mail, they'll get rid of them. Or if I've got something meaningful there, I'll come down or someone can drop it by.
Okay. Yes.
I opened your mail, Bob, and there was nothing really of any importance.
I got your paychecks.
Yeah. Thank you, Council Member Jeans. Yeah, we'll go ahead. We'll talk about it tomorrow at staff. we can get a staff member who's in the city hall. We can check mailboxes and then send emails or whatever we need to do for the council members. Yeah, that would not be a problem, I don't think.
Okay.
All right. Mark Hoffman, did you have a comment you wanted to make here?
Just to tack on with Rick, we did one round of deliveries and verification a week ago with Gwen at City Hall, and we could follow up with a second one this week with you,
Perfect.
Eugene. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Councilor Mayhew.
Yeah, Mayor, I have just two staff sort of questions. Is now the appropriate time?
It is, yes, if there's any other questions for or from the staff at this time.
Yeah, I had one question. One of my two questions is that I heard a rumor in the community that a tenant may have begun tenant improvements in the old IGA building. I don't know if that's the case or not, or if there's anything that can be shared with council regarding that.
Mark, did you want to address that?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. The IGA space is rather large. We had a building permit application for a demising wall to divide that into two. And so the center portion of the former IGA will now be a Dollar Tree. They have it leased. The permit was for the demising wall. They've submitted a sign concept, but not a sign permit application. We're working with that today. And they will take the loading dock area in the back of the building and the very center of the IGA. The portion facing the parkway will still be Starbucks, and then the 3 suites occupied by Positive Ally, which is a daycare educational facility. That leaves one vacancy. It's the western or northern portion of the former IGA that's up for grabs for a lease, and we haven't heard yet.
Councilor Mayhew had a second question.
Yes, I also was aware of some community discussion regarding litter and some perhaps activities after park closure at the community park, and just wanted to make sure that city staff was aware of that and was that they were aware of that.
Okay, I'll let any of the staff chime in if they want to on that one. Councilor, any other?
Brian.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Council Member Mayhew. We are aware of that. We're working with the police department on that. It's been an ongoing challenge this summer with so many people at home.
All right, thank you, Brian. Council, any other questions from the staff or staff, any announcements before we conclude tonight? All right, to that, with hearing none, there being no further business coming before the council, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn tonight's meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. All right, motion is approved. The meeting is now adjourned. Everyone, please go and enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good night.